We haven't talked about our boy Vivek.
Vivek Watch 2023.
2024 is all going to be about Vivek Watch until he just loses steam and it gets to the Trump.
All right, what did the boy do?
The boy came out swinging. So obviously the third GOP debate. And look, we had like a chat about this, but it's, again, social media, like your ability to reach an audience and connect to an audience, especially, look, our generation, a lot of people, I'm not saying everyone.
Sorry, excuse me.
I'm boring you that much.
No, sorry.
They're not going to look at a whole 1 hour, 40 minutes, that's how big it is, debate, right? They're not going to look at it, right?
It's the snippets.
Correct.
The
So your ability to like communicate your likeness or your proposition or your brand, which for a lot of these people, it's kind of what it is.
Oh, it's relatability,
Yeah.
even at the base level, right?
Is condensed in sound bites. It really is condensed in sound bites. And obviously Vivek came out with the strong, he came out swinging, right, effectively. But people are going to talk about the, he had a lot of exchanges with Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley, like by all pundits in the second GOP debate, she really came out strong, won a lot of backing. And it's just fascinating just to see the coverage here.
So hold on, just quickly on that. So we're saying that it's a considered approach to actually go against that, like...
I don't know, but like we talked about this. Like Trump, like for the Republicans, is clearly up ahead. He just is, with all the controversy, even though it's not 100% like
90 plus criminal charges.
Confirmed that he can. Is it when will we know for sure that they can actually run with all these charges pending? Anyway, question mark. Let's just say it there. Even with all that looming over, he's still well ahead in Republican.
It's ridiculous.
So these guys are fighting for second in command, really, or first in command should Trump stumble for whatever legal sort of reason.
That
right?
would be interesting.
So really, right now, it's a 3-horse race between Nikki Haley, DeSantis, right?
DeSantis.
And Vivek, right? I think the numbers still have Ron DeSantis there. I don't know where Nikki Haley...
Florida.
Nikki Haley ranks there. And I think Vivek is still the upstart, right? There. Yeah. But in terms of the three debates that we've had, these three are clearly separating. They already separated themselves from the pack, right? The first GOP debate was Vivek's introduction for a lot of people to the Australian, American, and if not the world, really, right?
Yeah,
the world.
yeah.
Like for a lot of people, right? The first GOP debate, at least for the Republicans, was an introduction of who these candidates are, right? Yep. So second, he was a bit docile, a little bit more muted, and a lot of people were saying, look, how can you start off that strong, and do that? And the third, he clearly heard that, or he got revved up. So to answer your question specifically, I don't know if it was a concerted attack on Nikki Haley, but they had a lot of interchange and exchanges with obviously Dick Cheney and 9-inch heels, 7-inch heels, whatever. That was the sound bite that a lot of people were like, "That's really good. That's a bar." like a lot of people like that. But
I love how was it Vivek was saying like, oh, like it was like 3-inch heels or something, and then she was like, sorry, it's like 6 or something.
She was correcting on it, and she's like, I wear them because of protection or for
like
as a weapon.
They're not for fashion. They're ammunition.
Ammunition, that's the one.
What does that mean? I'm sorry, girl. What does that mean?
Well,
you think you ate that? Like,
okay,
I don't know what that means.
So here's the interesting one, right? So they were talking about a lot of topics. Obviously, the war between Israel and Hamas came up as well. And I think of all the three GOP debates, this was probably the most structured in terms of there was still the talking over each other and still the cutting off, but it just... I think, third time's a charm. You've done it 3 times. You probably get over this name call. There were elements of that as well.
Got to get the people going.
That's always going to happen. But yeah, Vivek came out. He basically came out attacking the media, the interviewers, claiming that,
CNN.
CNN specifically, claiming that Joe Rogan, Elon Musk, and who is the other one? I can't remember. Carl, I can't remember. But basically... he is an anti-establishment guy, right?
Yep.
He's not cut from that cloth. He is a businessman, and that's his whole shtick, right? Against neocons. So he really basically reaffirmed his position and doubled down on it by attacking sort of everyone, effectively a mirror of what he did in the first debate, which he kind of took a pedal off and was returned to form of the Vivek we loved. But I think what was interesting is... Tucker,
Carlson. Ugh.
Anyway, so that was that. But I thought what was interesting was the divergent schools of thought between the current conflicts in Ukraine and Russia, obviously, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of the other candidates, sans Vivek, or they're basically in the school of thought of supporting basically Ukraine, solidarity in Ukraine, in the way that they're currently doing it now, which is the proxy warfare that they're fighting, and the resources that they're giving. However, Vivek's stance is quite different in that he wants to support, but not at that same sort of level. So his view is to ensure that America is all under control first, and that doesn't necessarily mean fighting proxy wars there. So
don't get involved in other people's business if we don't need to get involved.
Well, you're seeing here, and like to the Niki Haley point again, we can't really speak on it because this is just our perspective as Australians that are watching it here. That I'm not saying they're for war or anything, but like there are a lot of very strong adjectives used when it comes to like war, and America's role as the purveyor of peace, right? Like Captain America and all that sort of stuff, right?
For justice, and the position, for free speech,
and the position that they need to play and the resources there, because a lot of America's, GDP and debt and all that stuff is tied in the industrial complex, which is war.
Yeah.
Which is the war, and there are arguments for both sides, but I think this is going to be a very interesting one, just for Vivek to cut through the bone and say a stance which is probably not something that we have seen any other prospective American candidate do so. It is very different, and it is very like bold. I'm not saying it's right, I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm saying it's a real key differentiator, because if you believe in that, you don't believe America should be fighting the wars and having such a... Everyone knows what it is, the proxy war.
Based on, it's predicated based on the history of kind of the red, white, and blue, right? Where there is so much kind of story within the wars that are being had. And it's just like, it's the right thing to do.
Yes.
Whereas it feels like from a Vivek point of view, he's very much speaking on the fact of, like, I'm a business, man. Like, got to think about it. Like, we can't be putting that much money into here, because is that the right use of money that we should be spending?
You're right. Going after the establishment. And I can't help think that, like, look, whatever happens, like, people know about him now, right? Definitely more than before.
Yeah.
And he's just going to be put under that bracket of that progressive that just has weird, like, out of the box ideas. He's a CEO. He's 38. He's probably underqualified. But if I'm 30s and he's a breath of fresh air.
It's the changing
very
of
different.
The guard.
Yeah. Like we talked about it, but I think it is a longer play to potentially get in the Trump administration until I see, or appease the MAGA voters in Trump and see if he can kind of get that sway. But he's coming with very different projections and ideals, and none of this was, again, very interesting, because they spoke about, I think the other thing that I found really interesting, I can't remember because I listened to all of it in its entirety, and it's very hard to like keep notes there, is that the moderators and the speakers, they're hell-bent on getting the question answered. Duh. But what I mean is at the expense of hearing, a lot of these questions are going to have nuanced answers.
100%.
It's not going to be a black and white yes or no.
And also, sorry, the other thing I couldn't help but notice when I was tuning into a little bit of it,
tuning out,
was the fact that it's predicated on the order, right, of who gets to speak on that question, and everyone gets a chance to speak on that question. Yeah. And of course, you're not going to repeat the same thing that somebody said, because
a lot of them sounded the same.
Because it looks like you agree with them. You know what I mean? Like the funniest question to me was the one is like, oh, why should it be you instead of Donald Trump? And it's just the different angles that people try to get into. Well, hilarious.
For a lot of those guys, their PR firms or whatever are hearing that, right?
Oh, yeah.
But it was, and the reason I say that is I can't remember which one it was, but they were talking about the aged pension and raising the working age, right?
Yeah.
And I remember whatever, like what's your view on it? What would your view it, right? And I remember the candidates, the journalists, they were pressing on an answer because, and like it's it's not, hey, it's.
Do you think they weren't prepared for like, they were like, oh, shivers. We
No,
weren't
but
prepared
I
for
think
that question.
I think that's just the nuance of.
You don't want to say something that's so.
Yeah. Well, firstly, if you're a candidate, if you're a presidential candidate, your job is to know a little bit of everything, but your economists are going to do that. Your actuaries are going to have to do that. You can't, and if you say something, just like what happened in Australia in the RBA, where Philip Rose said something and he took it back, you can't say with definity things because it's on tape. There are receipts everywhere now.
Yeah.
We're in the social media generation. It's just going to make you look bad. So you can't say, hey, I'm going to raise it from, I don't know what it is, 85 to 87. That's because you just don't know. There's nuances within it. You've got to explain your general concept on it. But what I'm saying is,
it's only in a short finite amount of time.
And they have it's a short amount of time.
The fact that like one of the other candidates was constantly just getting cut off, like just from a time point of view, it's like that's high pressure.
It was interesting. The TikTok one was really interesting as well. The exchange between Vivek and Niki Haley, where basically they were presented with what would you do with TikTok if you were. I love how they call it commander in chief. It's such a war, like if you were commander
in chief.
Yeah, like just call it president, mate. Like what commander in? You're already like talking about war. Like that's a war.
That's what it is. It's
like
100% double downing on this notion of we are the home of the brave.
Anyway, it was interesting. So yeah, sorry, back to it. Obviously Vivek is on TikTok. He's with Jake Paul, whatever, one of the Pauls, and it was like doing a weird ass little dance. So he went to. So
he did.
He did. Yeah, I'm sure you've seen this.
Wow.
We did a short on it anyway. Anyway.
No, that was the Eminem one.
No. He did it with one of the twins. It was pretty cringe. But anyway, so all of them were anti TikTok. If I come in, it's got to go. The short elevator pitch.
Yep.
Where Vivek was like, I feel like this was almost a trap because he couldn't say no because he's on TikTok. Because if he says no, then you're like, you're a hypocrite.
You're on TikTok. Like you're effectively going against what your stance is.
So I almost don't know if this is like a trap, but he kind of weaved it in a way politicians do, that it's not only about TikTok, it's about American companies that give information and send information to China. And clearly that's like it's interesting because there's so many like wars happening now. Like I don't know if we're just more attuned to it because we're researching on the podcast, but like the Ukraine and Russia stuff has been happening.
Remember, guys,
for a while now.
The world is shit. That's the headline that we're going with, right?
We're living in a very very interesting age where I think, especially America, is attuned to the fact that like. I don't know what a new world war would look like, but I feel like we're going through a version of that with like AI and all that. Like it's just in a very different way.
Oh yeah.
It's not going to be. It's going to be a lot of spy games. But anyway, look, I don't know where that rabbit hole came from. But look, Vivek, run of form. He's come back. We're back, baby. Vivek Watch 2023, 2024.